Hey, hello everyone. Hope you're doing fine today. My name is Milan Jankov, and I'm a developer advocate at Liferay. And Liferay is the company that brings to you things like a super cool web development platform called Liferay Portal and an awesome web application hosting platform, which comes with predefined services, and it's known as WeDeploy. It also brings a lot of open source backend, frontend, and mobile libraries and tools. And the reason you hear and the reason we do all this as an open source is to make developers like you more productive. Well, if I look a bit nervous, that's because likely I am. Being a host of a online show, it's kind of a new role for me. And honestly, I feel like I'm in the dream of my 13-year-old boy who once asked who you want to be, said YouTuber. So, well, who knows? One day I may end up having earned my money by showcasing to some kids how to play Minecraft. But in the meanwhile, let's see if I can even handle this without you noticing my kids running around or any of my pets. Luckily for me, my face is not going to stay long on your screen, though. So my role here is rather short, and it boils down to introduce you to the subject matter expert who has actually something interesting to show you. And today, that subject matter expert is Sergio. Hey, Sergio, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. But before I I pass it to Sergio, I would like to say thank you, Sergio, for joining us and willing to share your knowledge with the Liferay's community. And I'll take a minute or two to tell you a bit more about what DevLife is. So if you already know this, or you still haven't had a chance to grab your coffee, you have a couple of minutes to do so. It may be the right time. So meanwhile, I'm going to share my screen with you to show you something that I prepared. Okay, and this is DevLife. It's brought to you by Liferay and in general by Liferay Developer Relations Team, which I'm proud to be part of. So for those of you who don't know, DevLife sessions started back in 2014 and they were launched by James Faulkner, who at the time was Liferay's community manager. And the main idea was to have experienced developers and subject matter experts share their knowledge with Liferay's community. So no sales pitches, almost no slides, only developer-related topics in the form of online hands-on workshops. So during the year and a half when DevLife was active, there were 16 sessions on a variety of subjects, and all of them are recorded and available to you in this channel to watch. Some of them are still relevant, some of them probably not so. Well, check them out and decide for yourself. Sadly for us, hopefully not so much for James, in 2016 he decided to move on his career path and DevLife became an orphan place, unfortunately, for about 2 years. And ever since we established the developer relations team in Liferay, we've wanted to revive the sessions, and finally we were able to. So everyone, welcome to the new season of Liferay DevLife online session, which we call the 2018 season. We still don't know how many episodes there will be. We still don't know who the actors will be. What we know, though, is that it will continue to be from developers for developers. So for those of you who already been before or watched before DevLife sessions, there are a couple of changes which I'm going to quickly introduce right now. The first thing is it's now more diverse. And the reason is we now have far more products to talk about and projects to talk about than we used to have. As you already know, Liferay is no longer only the Liferay Portal, but a lot of other technologies like WeDeploy, like Alloy Editor, and and Senna on the front end, and so forth. So we will be covering all of those. I mean, we will be trying to, obviously. So it's no longer only the portal. The second change is we're trying to be more social and more local. That's why you probably came here from our meetup. The page on liferay.com community that used to show all the information about DevLife is still there, but it's not going to be used for this season. It's just there for you to see what was there before. As we are moving to the new community website, we will probably introduce a better integration between Liferay community website and the meetups. But for now, we plan to use meetups, so you can sign up on the meetup and get notified when there is a new session scheduled. We also use generally meetups to handle all of our user groups. So feel free to explore more, see where we have user groups, and join the one nearest to you. More interactive, it's not really that much more interactive. We, in the old version of the DevLife sessions, we used to have IRC channel where you could ask questions. Now you could either use the YouTube comments, which are probably somewhere next to the video you're right now watching if you do this live, or you can use our Slack channel, DevLife. And you see the URL on the screen right now. It's also in the comments below the video. So please join. Please ask questions. Please express your opinions, because this is one of the main goals of DevLife, being interactive and serving you well. And we only can serve you well if you know what you need. OK, so without further ado, today's session is optimized content for every device with adaptive media. And the person presenting that to you would be Sergio González, who is a senior software engineer at Liferay. And for as far as I can tell, has been working on documented media and collaboration tools at Liferay for pretty much all his times in the company. So please welcome Sergio. And Sergio, it's your turn, brother.
Okay, thank you, Milan. Well, as Milan already introduced, we're going to talk about Adaptive Media, a new application that we have recently released in Marketplace. We're very happy with the results so far, and we wanted to share with you not only the result, but also more technical details and to show you how we build this really cool app. So before we start and we get our hands dirty, I'd like to give some context about what is adaptive media and where this idea came from. If you look at how the website has been built since the beginning, here you can see some screenshots that show how websites were created in 1996, for example, with Lego or Apple on the right, even Liferay.com, you could see the website, how it was built. You can see that there were not too many images. Most of them were really small, and it was like text-oriented or content-oriented, where the relevant information was made via text. If we compare these websites to what we have today, it's totally different. These are the same screenshots of the same company of the websites looking as of today. You can see that they are like few less text. It's most of the content is based on images. They are really big images. They are really impressive images. And you can see that it's more design-oriented, not that much text-oriented. So, as you can imagine, the average total page size has increased. We're talking about 700 kilobytes in average in 2010. And as of today, according to HTTP Archive, we are talking about even 5 times bigger web pages. We have increased in 7 years, 5 times. That's huge. If you go deeper and see how is the different components of the web pages evolve, you can see that images was 70% of the page size in 2010, and that has been slightly reduced up to 55%. But still, half of the page size in time today, it's images. Video is taking a bigger piece of the pie. As you can see, it's almost 25%, but still images is like 50%, even a little bit more. So if you see how this evolved, and now we're just focusing on images, you see that it's increasingly. We are talking about like 100 or like 1700 kilobytes in 2 days. And if you compare with the number of images, you might think, okay, but more and more images. But the reality is that that's not correct. We are including almost the same number of images in average per website. So if you put these two graphs together, what you could get the conclusion to is that we are not getting more and more images. We are getting bigger and bigger images. That's why the size of the page is increasing a lot. So this is when we think that adaptive media comes into play. As I already said before, adaptive media is available in Liferay Marketplace for both Liferay Portal and Liferay DXP. And we're going to see one of the benefits of adaptive media. What is it really intended to? The main goal is to serve the best content to the right device. So we are trying to optimize the content, make sure that we always deliver the best quality with the less size. Adaptive media automatically transforms the images that are stored in Liferay, and it will adequate them to certain image resolutions that can be defined by the administrators. And we will use those image resolutions to serve the best images. What do you get with this? You are reducing your page size. You're improving the loading time and you're saving bandwidth. And that's particularly important in mobile devices where they have some limited bandwidth. And the best of all, it's automagical for the end user. You don't need to train your new user. You don't need to update your documentation. There are not a lot of extra steps that you need to do to get all of these benefits. It's almost magic. And now we're going to see different steps where I'm going to have both mix some source code and some browser so we can see the UI and we can see how this looks like. So first things first, we're going to start adding image resolutions. So let me switch to my browser. Oh, by the way, this is the latest master. So this means that what you are seeing right now, it will become Liferay not very far ahead. So let's see. I just have Liferay. I just have a blog in the page, and I'm going to start showing you guys how is adaptive media and where you can find it. You can go to Control Panel, Configuration, and you see a new app here, Adaptive Media. This is the main control for adaptive media. It's where the administrators are intended to go and define their image resolutions and define their use cases. By default, we just provide a thumbnail resolution. It's 300 pixels by 300 pixels. And as it says here, it's already enabled, and it has 100% of the images adapted. This means that we have 31 images, and 31 images have been adapted. We can add new image resolutions. Let's say, for example, we are going to add a new image resolutions that it's targeted for, let's say, small mobile devices. We don't have, we are targeting a specific set of devices. And here is where we define the size. We can define both max width or max height, or just only one of those. So let's say that I want to create an image resolution for 800 pixels. Just only the width. I don't care about the height. So it will be automatically resized. And I want to have a high density display. This means that if the device that I'm targeting the image to supports high density resolution, I'm going to explicitly send a not very well optimized image suitable for that kind of device. Finally, this identifier section is intended for API use, is the key that univocally identifies this image resolution. By default, it's auto-generated based on the name, as you can see, but of course, you can customize it and you can write your own key. For the sake of the sample, just leave it automatic, and I'm saving the image resolution. And you can see that both images have been successfully created, and I have the original image that is 800 pixels, and I have the high density image resolution that is twice as big as the previous one. This is where the administrator has full control of the resolutions. They can disable certain image resolutions. This means that if a user is targeting for this specific image and it's disabled, it won't be served. It will be served a 302, like 302 response code, and he will be redirected to the original image. And once this has been disabled, of course, it can be deleted. So now that we have this, let's go and add some images to documents and media and see how it evolves. I have some images already here, but I'm going to add another one like this and this, for example. I'm going just to drop them to the desktop. They are being uploaded. Okay, they have been uploaded here. So if I go to adaptive media now, I will see that this percentage that right now it's empty, it's no images have been uploaded here. It will increase as soon as the images are generated to the percentage to reflect that. You see, here it's already generating some images. I have one image generated. This is an asynchronous process, so that's why it's taking a little bit longer and it's completely on the background. Now this is 6%, and now this is starting to get there. So this is just generating the images that has been uploaded at this particular time. Of course, you can go ahead and not only adapt the images that we just added, that in this case is 2, because as you can see that it will stop there. But if you click here and you say adapt remaining, it will adapt all the images that you have in your documents and media. It will be adapted. You see that it's creating them, it's evolving. I can, of course, do the same with the other one, and it will start to create those images as soon as the other one is done. So this process is wrapping up, and it's scaling automatically all those images stored in documents and media for you. Let's see how does this process work in terms of code in the backend. I'm going to switch to IntelliJ, and I'm going to use the presenter mode so you guys can see the source better. Okay. So how does adaptive media work, and how is it composed? Okay. First things first, it's when we design adaptive media, we wanted to make it as modular as possible, as granular as possible. That's why adaptive media, it's an app that it's composed for more than 30 different OSJ modules, as you can see here. It's very fine-grained modular, and this has several benefits that we're going to see over the session. For this particular example, in order to connect to a document library, that is when the image is uploaded, we are using what we call, let me search them, repository definers. In this case, we have some adaptive media library repository definer. This is the class that connects to adaptive media. This is an OSGI component. That means that it can be customized and you can add as much as you want. And by default, it's just hooking up adaptive media with documents and media default repository. This is what we are doing. That's why we are targeting the library repository here. And the logic, it's here in this base class, that if we go and if we see the most important stuff is at the end. Here, we are registering different events. So basically, we are saying, every time that a file entry is added to this repository, I want to invoke this method. The same for deleting and the same for updating. So with these 3 lines, we are taking full control of the whole life cycle of documents in documents and media. So let's see some sample code of adaptive media. This will be targeted when a user adds a file entry or updates a file entry. And if we see the method here, this is where the logic happens. We are getting the adaptive media async processor, and we are triggering it with the file version that has been uploaded. This is the responsibility of the repository definer. It's getting the file entry and letting adaptive media processor knows that this new file version has been added to the repository. So adaptive media sync processor can take care of doing all the processing on their own. Okay, this is the first part for, let me go back to regular mode, and let me go back to the browser. You see that during this time, all the images have been generated in adaptive media, and here you have all of them 100%. This means that all the images, now they have 3 different resolutions. They have 3 different copies with different sizes, each of those. As I already said, all this process is happening on the background, and that's why I showed you the adaptive media async processor. So let's go again and see a little bit more of this processor. Okay. So here, this is just a locator that is located in an async processor. This is again an OSGI component, and it's listening for all kind of processors. So you can customize it and you can add your own processors. We're going to see the one that is implemented by default by adaptive media. It's this one. Is the adaptive media async processor impl, who is responsible of sending the file version with the action through the message bus to do the work asynchronously. This is what we are actually doing here. We are just letting the message bus know that there's a new message. This message contains all the information that is necessary for the process to manipulate the image, and it's just sending that message through the message bus. This is fully configurable by default. It's the adaptive media sync bus is configured to do the work asynchronously and in parallel. That means that there is not just one thread taking care of the image scaling, but there are multiple threads taking care of the image scaling. Where do you actually define that? That's defined through system settings. And you can see the default configuration here in adaptive media messaging configurator. Here we're configuring the message bus, and as I already told you, it's parallel and it's async. And here you have the number of threads that it's going to take care of this work by default, and the number of maximum threads that can take care of this in case that there's a peak and there is more effort and we need to take care of it. This, of course, is part of adaptive media configuration. This is an adaptive media, this is an OSGI configuration. Here you can see the default values. It means that by default, there are always 2 threads available to take care of the images processors. And there are 5 threads as the maximum number that will take care of image scaling. Of course, these 2 values can be changed from the UI in Liferay through system settings, and you can customize this. This is very important because the more number of threads you have in your environment, the more memory it will take to process those images, because you will keep multiple images in your RAM memory at the same time. So you might end up running out of memory errors. So if you are planning of increasing these numbers, please take care of increasing the memory of your server. And it would be great if you can run some performance tests to ensure that you actually don't get a bad performance because of this. Okay, this is the first part, just sending the image through the message bus, and it's everything where the work is done. And here, we're going to continue with the scaling. And we explain how this message was sent to the message bus. Now we're going to see who is receiving that message. That message is received by the adaptive media message listener, who is receiving that image, is receiving the message here in the receive method. It contains all the different images. And this is delegating the work in a here adaptive media processor command, who is going to take care of executing wherever we tell them to do. This is just an process the image. So this is the current implementation by default of the adaptive media processor. That is where the logic for scaling the image is going to be invoked. Again, this is an OSGI component. This is a full customizable component. It can be replaced, it can be added, or it can be substituted. So the most relevant part happens here in this process. You can see that there are 2 process methods. The first one will process this file version, and it will generate all the image resolutions. And the second method will create this particular image resolution for this particular file version. So if you see, this method ends up calling this method with all the different configuration entries. Here, it's where we have the processing, the scaling processing logic. We have an adaptive media image scaler tracker, who is going to take care of doing the proper scaling for the right image. By default, we are providing 2 different image scalers. let's see in more detail, adaptive media image scaler. You can see that we are providing the adaptive media default image scaler, and we are providing one custom adaptive media GIF image scaler. The default is taking care of all kind of images except those who has a GIF MIME type. For those GIF MIME types, the adaptive media GIF image scaler is taking care of it. And this is just for testing purposes. So if you see the adaptive media GIF image scaler, it's just an adaptive media image scaler. This is the interface, and it's registered using that interface in the OSGI framework. And this is the part that defines that this image scaler will only apply for this particular MIME type. So if you upload an image, which is a GIF, it will be processed by this adaptive media image GIF scaler. But if you upload an image that is not a GIF, it's a JPEG or it's a PNG, it will be processed by this adaptive media default image scaler because it's for all kind of MIME types, okay? So why did we make that distinction between GIF and non-GIFs? Well, the reason why we did that is because for adaptive media GIF image scaler, we are using an external tool that is taken care of, even though that we are resizing and we are scaling the image, in case that image is animated because it contains different frames, we are scaling each of those frames. So after the whole image is rescaled, it will still contain the animation. So the animation is not lost, even when we rescale the image. And in order to do that, we are using a third-party tool that is GIF Cycle. This is something that can be like deployed or it can't be deployed. That's up to the system administrator, and it's up to you guys to decide whether you want to use this GIF Cycle or not. If you are not using this GIF Cycle, it's okay, because this won't be enabled and the adaptive media default image scaler will take care of it. The only drawback of that solution is that when the image is rescaled, the animation will be lost, okay? And for the other images, it will be handled by adaptive media default image scaler. And the logic here to do all the scaling is done using some Java classes, and it's actually delegated here to image tool util that it's using. Let me show you. It's basically done using this package, Java AWT. Those are the ones who will take care of doing all the scaling for you. So one of the cool things of having this in this modular design is that, let's say that you don't want to have this scaling using Java, because for whatever reasons, you prefer to use ImageMagick, for example. So it's pretty easy. You can just create a new component. You can register it with a MIME type like asterisk, so it will be registered for all of them. You just provide a higher service ranking. And then, as part of this scale image method, you just need to invoke ImageMagick. You just deploy that new module, and it will replace the whole behavior of adaptive media in terms of scaling to use your custom logic. You don't need to do any kind of customization. You don't need to touch this adaptive media source code. You don't need to manipulate anything. Just by deploying a new module that contains only one class that implements this, you are changing the whole scaling in adaptive media, which is a big part of the solution. By the way, we did some testing with ImageMagick compared to this solution that we provide out of the box, and it turned out to be like between 2 and 5 times slower than our current solution. So that's why we decided to keep Java as the default scaling for our use cases. Okay. Now that this is more or less clear about how this process is working, we end up getting different image resolutions. We are getting different image scales. Now let's go back to the browser and see how this smoothly integrates with our out-of-the-box applications. Okay. Okay, so we have here several documents with different adaptive images. And here in the blog, adaptive media is integrated out of the box in blogs and web contents. Let's see how this works in blogs. So we are adding a new blog entry here. And then I'll just say testing adaptive media in DevLife. Here, as part of the content, I'm going to include an image, right? So I will just click here. Oh, by the way, we included a really nice feature to embed video in blogs, but that's not the target of this section. But so let's include an image here. This is the image selector displaying. I don't have any images in blogs, but I have several images in documents and media. So I'll click documents and media, and here you can see a bunch of different images. So let's use the latest one that I included, this C image. You can see it here. I can add it. It's automatically included in the content, and I just publish this. The new blog entry is here, testing adaptive media. Let's see how it looks like. This is also a new styling for blogs that we're working on. And here you can see the image that is selected. So far, I didn't do anything different. I just selected the image and published the blog entry. But some magic happened under the hood. If you actually inspect this HTML, you won't just see an image, but you can see a picture with different sources. This is how adaptive media has been integrated with blogs. So right now we are just not providing one image. We are providing a bunch of different images, each oriented for a different device with different screen sizes. So if the device is between 300 pixels and 800 pixels, we are sending this particular URL. If it's bigger than 800 pixels up to 1600 pixels, we are using this other URL. So we have 3 different URLs. And of course, we also include the original image as a fallback in case that thing doesn't work or in case that there's something wrong with the other images. So let's say that this is actually working the way we expect it to work. Let's go to the network tab so we can see all the different things happening here. And let's refresh the blog entry. Okay. Let me clean the network tab once everything is finished. Okay. Now I'm going to use this mobile to simulate the mobile device. And actually, you can see that a bunch of different requests happened here for the image. This is targeting the adaptive media image with a thumbnail 300 by 300. This is the small devices +2. So if I make this smaller, or if I do this bigger, I will see that we are asking for different, you see here, we're asking for the original image. Let's refresh this and simulate that instead of watching this in a desktop, we are watching this. Let me see that it didn't refresh. Okay, now it's refreshing. So this could be how you see it in the desktop. And now if you resize it a little bit, there you go. You have a new request here that it will return with a 200. And actually, if you see this image, this is 1600. This is the size of the image. If you keep making it smaller, you'll see a new request once it reaches. There we go. Oh, that's the data. I think I missed it. Yeah, there you go. Here it is. The other request. Here it's loading. Sorry, it's taking a while. Here in the preview, you see that this image is just 300 pixels. It's way smaller. So basically, depending on the device and the screen size, we are automatically sending different images, the most appropriate image based on the screen size. Okay, let's go back to the normal mode. Here, the exact same thing that you saw here, it will happen, of course, if you do in web content. But not only that, we also took care that if, for example, here in this blog, if instead of selecting the image here, just by using the image selector, if you automatically do like a drag and drop from your desktop, it will also work by default. It will be automatically uploaded, and it will generate the adaptive media image. and it's automatically taking care of all the different resolutions for you. So this is pretty nice because users don't need to have any experience in creating content. They don't need to be HTML experts. They just need to use the regular tools that we provide. Our by default editor, even just using drag and drop or any kind of tool. And Adaptive Media will automatically do all the work for you using all the different or the best resolutions to reduce the page size and increase the page load as much as we can. Of course, this also happens to work in web content. It works for both. We won't just do the full example, but it will, just so you guys know, it's also integrated when you create a structure and a template. It's automatically included by default. And one of the cool things is that right now we only have 3 image resolutions here, right? So you might think that these images that we embedded at this particular time, they're just only using those 3 image resolutions. As you can see, 3 different sources tags here. But what happens if we go ahead and if we add a new image resolution here? So let's say we are a super high resolution, that its max width is, I don't know, 2500. So we are adding just this new image resolution. Now, if we refresh this page, you might expect that still the 3 image resolutions are displayed, but since we are doing this change synchronously, you can see that now there is a 4th image resolution displayed here. That is actually the one that I just created for the 2500 pixels. So no matter when you update your image resolutions, that we're always keeping your content up to date to use the latest defined image resolutions. If on the contrary, if you remove or if you disable one of these image resolutions, that image resolution won't be used in the content, even if it was included at the time that it was created. And you might wonder, how is it working if here it says 0, like no image resolution has been added yet, because this is a really new high resolution and it doesn't have any adaptive media image yet? That's a good question. One of the cool things here is that even if the image resolution is not created yet, the first time that the user tries to access to that image resolution is started to be created on demand, lazily, under the hood for you. So that's really nice, because you can see here, I didn't adapt any image, I didn't add any new image, but those 2 images that have been used in this blog entry, since they have been displayed for the first user, they have been auto-generated for the first time. Then, if there is another user who is accessing the same blog entry after the first one did, they won't need to generate it again because it was already generated. So you are just, the first time that the user is accessing a blog entry who is displaying an image that it doesn't have an image resolution created yet, it will be created at that time. And all the other users who are visiting that blog entry after, they will benefit of this. Okay, I think that's enough for the user demonstration. Let me go back here to some real code. Oh, sorry, I have. Oh. Okay, here. So let's go back to presentation mode and let me show you how we are making this dynamic replacement. So it will always keep up to sync all the different things. We are using that in an API that it's called Content Transformer. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, but I think it's something worth mentioning because it's one of the complaints that we have for Liferay for a while. We make sure that we Javadoc all our APIs, and we did that in a really nice way. So we are even including like examples. We are being very detailed in all the things that we are doing. Let me show you another one for processors, for example. Like basically all the APIs that are relevant for third-party developers, they have Javadoc, even in the Java class, and also in all the different methods. So we have this really well documented to help you guys customize this as much as you need. So where the content is actually replaced, it's done here in this content transformer API. Again, this is fully customizable. So we are implementing a few content transformers. The first one is for HTML and is the one that will be used by default. Basically what it does, it gets this data attribute from the image tag and it replaces that with the picture and all the different sources using just a regex. So if you see that in the blog here, where we're displaying this, if you actually edit the blog entry, if you inspect the HTML, you will see that the only thing different here in this particular HTML is just that data file entry ID attribute. This is the attribute that is mandatory to be included in the images, so Adaptive Media can automatically do the replacement for you. So every time that we are displaying this blog entry, we are analyzing this file entry ID, we are obtaining all the different resolutions available, and we are including them as picture elements with sources tags. That's the way Adaptive Media works. And that's why you see that we are using this data file entry ID here. And if we don't have that, we will just return the HTML. We are no longer processing it. But in case that it contains that file entry ID, we are doing some HTML processing. So this is where the magic happens for the automatic replacement. One cool thing is that we did this Adaptive Media backwards compatibility HTML content transformer. So what is this doing? It's in case that, let's say that you are using Liferay 7.0 or you are using Liferay 6.2 and you already have like a bunch of blog entries and a bunch of web contents created, and you want to take care, and now you want to take advantage of all these Adaptive Media features, you might think, whoa, now I need to like regenerate all those images. I need to update all my web content to point to these new images. No, that's not actually what you need to do. If you want to take advantage of Adaptive Media in your installation, you just need to deploy Adaptive Media. You just need to add the image resolutions. You don't necessarily need to regenerate all those image resolutions because, as we already saw, they are automatically created lazily for you. So you don't need to spend time on that. And you actually don't need to update your web content or your blog entries either, because this backwards compatibility transformer is automatically analyzing the URLs. And in case that it points to a file entry which contains image resolutions, it's doing the replacement for you. So what this means is that just by installing Adaptive Media and just by adding a bunch of different image resolutions, you are taking the whole advantage of Adaptive Media. And actually, if you measure the page size before and after Adaptive Media, you will be surprised of how it reduces it. So this is how we are doing this content transformer. And again, this is fully customizable. It's an OSGI component, and you can deploy new, or you can replace our own. Okay. I think that's the main part of how Adaptive Media works in terms of out-of-the-box features. Now, I just would like to go through a quick scan of all the APIs that we are providing that they might be useful for third-party developers to take advantage of Adaptive Media in their own code. Not so oriented for end users, but most for developers. So probably the most interesting and the easier one, it's a tag that we have created. It's Adaptive Media tag-lib. And instead of just showing you the tag-lib, I think it's easier if I just show you some sample code of how you can actually use this tag-lib. Well, first of all, you will just need to create a new dependency in your module to Adaptive Media image tag-lib. And in the JSPs, in case you're using JSPs, you will need to use the new TLD of Adaptive Media. You will just need to use this new import for the tag-lib. And it will, Liferay Adaptive Media, it's the prefix. So in your JSP, in order to use Adaptive Media for the images instead of just regular image, you only need to do this. This is the image, or this is the line that it's doing everything for you, replacing regular images with picture elements. So instead of just using here an image with an source. And instead of here just doing, I don't know, the regular would be to do something like file entry. Here you will get, you might invoke DLUtil to get the URL, for example. But you might need to do something like this, like here, DLUtil get preview URL, and you will just provide with the file entry and a bunch of other different things. This is what you would do in order to get advantage of, in order to use just an image here. And this will just be a regular image. So instead of doing this, you just invoke adaptive media image, and you only need to provide the file version where you want to use the image. That's it. Of course, you can add as many attributes as you want. You can add a class attribute. You can add an ID attribute. You can add a data attribute. You can add all the attributes that you might like to do. But the only mandatory stuff is this file version. So just by doing this on your portlets, you are making sure that you are reducing the page size and you are targeting the right image to the right device. So change your image tags with adaptive media image tag lib. That will improve a lot. This is the first API that it will be probably the one that is more interesting for developers. Of course, we provide some APIs to allow developers to scan and see what are the different resolutions available. And we do that through this Adaptive Media Finder API. This is a really nice API. It's a chaining API, and it's very easy to read and gives you full power of a lot of different actions. So let me show you some example in our test, and you can get an idea of how this will work. Okay. This might be a good example. So you just need to have the Adaptive Media Image Finder. This is just an OSGI component that you can inject in your source code. And the only thing that you need to do is to invoke this get adaptive media stream. This actually returns a Java 8 stream. And it accepts here a function where you just need to build your own query. In order to do that, we provide an image query builder. So you can do stuff like, give me all the images for this particular file version, order by with ascendingly. And it will return all those images as a stream. Of course, you can do more powerful things. Let me see if there's any other example here. Let's say 8, for example, or configuration. Because maybe you are not that interested in getting all the images, but you might be interested in getting a particular image. So, sorry, okay. And servlet. This is another example. You can get it. Okay. This is the servlet that it's actually returning the images. And here in this adaptive media, find adaptive media is where we are returning the right image. So for example, we have this find exact adaptive media. So you can do adaptive media image finder, give me the stream for the images for this file version for this particular image resolution, for example. And this will provide all the images with a particular scale or with a particular image resolution. Of course, you can also say, give me all the images for this file version with a width similar to this and with a height similar to this. And it will return a list of all the adaptive media images for this particular file version that are closer to these attributes. You can not only use width and height, but you can use a bunch of different attributes, like this is an image attribute, like for example, content length. So it will actually say, okay, give me all the attributes or give me all the images ordered by size. So it's a pretty useful API. You can use a bunch of different attributes. You can use a bunch of different orders. You can use exact queries. You can use fuzzy queries, and it will always return a stream of image resolutions. And just to let you know, right now we don't have a REST API in these first versions that we release in the marketplace. Our goal is to create a REST API that it's been developed by Liferay, and it will take all the benefits of hypermedia applied to REST APIs, and adaptive media will take advantage of all those things to expose these nice APIs for third party or for developers who need to have or who will use our REST endpoint. And I think that this is everything that I had to show you guys. I hope that you find this interesting. We're starting to get feedback, and it's been good so far. But yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Either in the Slack channel, we have a Slack channel, Adaptive Media, in the Slack group, or in the message boards in Liferay. Whatever feedback will be welcome. And thank you, Million, for giving me the opportunity to talk about adaptive media.
Thank you, Sergio, for showing that. Let me go through the Slack channel and the YouTube and see if there are some questions. There are indeed some questions. So switch back to you so people see you, but not me, and I read it to you. How does the image, that's Jose Fernandez asking, how does the image transformation affect the storage? I imagine the more options we add, the more disk space is consumed. Have you think about an option avoiding exhausting all the available space on the system?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you for asking. Right now, it's what you said, like when you are adding more and more image resolutions, you are, of course, using more and more space in your system. That's something that we are aware of, and right now we didn't have a solution for that yet. The reason why we didn't invest on that solution is because so far we've considered that storage is something that is getting cheaper, and it's not one of the main limitations right now. Right now we are more concerned in terms of processing, because, for example, if there is a lot of images uploaded and if there is a lot of activity in your portal, that might exhaust the server in terms of CPU usage, for example. So we are thinking about moving all that processing to external servers so they can scale independently. And that's the reason why focus on that aspect. That's what we are probably going to invest in the next months. But it's something that we are aware of the storage. It's some of the problems that we know. We probably could come up with some solutions. They might not be, or they might not have a huge impact, but we might be able to reduce some redundancy at least. Yeah.
All right, that sounds good. And by the way, if you, the people watching this or now live or later on the recording, if you have a particular use case that you deal with lots of images and you want to try that and you have your concerns about storage or any other concerns, join the Slack channel or the forums and share your experience and your intentions. This is at least going to help Sergio and his team design better solution for you in the future. And there is a question which is kind of related to that, and it's actually a question that I also wanted to ask myself, is what happens if you remove a resolution? Are all the images deleted?
Yeah, right now that's what actually happens. If you go here to this adaptive media, and if you remove whatever image resolutions, all the different images that were created for that particular resolution will be deleted.
Are they deleted immediately, or they go to the garbage bin? I mean, can I say, oh, no. Oops, I didn't mean to do that?
Okay, yeah. They are not sent to the recycle bin. So once you delete them, they are deleted forever. But in order to avoid that mistake, we decided to include this additional step. Like, you cannot actually delete an image resolution. As you can see, it's not allowed. You need to first disable the image resolution. That's what I just did. it's not disabled, and now you can delete it. So it's like a two-step process in order to avoid mistakes like that. But once you delete this image resolution, let's do it, all the different images that were created for that specific size were gone.
All right, and this brings me to my question, which is, can you do this adding and removing image resolutions programmatically?
You mean?
I mean, I assume if you can
or?
do it from UI, you can do it from the code. But is it a public API? Is it something that we expect other developers to be able to do, or is it like an internal thing?
So right now, let me check that, because I'm actually not sure, but it will be really quick. I think that it's something that it's available. It's probably something that we didn't intend, or we didn't think that most of users could like to do. But of course, it's something that it can be done. Actually, I think that this is handled by the helper. Yeah, there's an adaptive media helper here, image configuration helper. It's again an OSGI component that you can use. And of course, you can add here the image resolution, you can delete it, you can disable, and so on. Keep in mind, as it's actually, I think it's displayed, or it's so, if you just invoke delete without invoking disable, you will get an invalid state exception. Except if you invoke the force delete. So if you invoke this method, force delete, that we are not invoking from the UI, you can actually delete it even if it's enabled, as the Java doc explains.
Nice. Okay, and one more question from Marcos Krause. If an uploaded image has a lower resolution than the one defined in the list of image resolutions, I guess it will be upscaled. What algorithm is used for that process, like bilinear interpolation, for example, and can that algorithm be defined?
Okay, yeah, that's another good question. We are not actually upscaling the image, because the goal of the whole adaptive media is to reduce the image sizes, because it's to make pages lighter and make things go fast. So we are not actually upscaling images. In case that you have a really small image and there's this big image resolution, we are not doing anything. We are just using that image and that's it.
And,
so we are not doing any process.
And you're hoping the browser or whatever the client is to handle it properly.
Yeah, like if you are scaling the image, yeah. Because actually there's no, I mean, that's where the question was actually coming, I guess. There's no really nice algorithm for doing upscaling, because it's super hard to do that, yeah.
Well, I mean, making up stuff is hard, so I guess we all agree with that. Okay, let me go with the YouTube questions. So Miro Ligas is asking, is there a way to get the URLs, or just open the HTML, or is there a pattern?
Can you actually repeat the question, Milen? Is it about how the URL is composed, or?
So the actual question, which I tried to rephrase on the fly, and I guess it didn't work. I get the URLs from somewhere other than opening the HTML, or is there a pattern?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. That's, of course, part of the API. So here in the Adaptive Media Image Finder, that is where you invoke the API for obtaining this adaptive media. This adaptive media contains a bunch of different methods. Get input stream, that will give you the input stream of the scaled image, and this get URI method. This will give you the URL for that particular image. That's the best way of getting it. Of course, this is a pattern and you can obtain it, but I would suggest that in case that you want to use the URL, you go ahead and use the Finder API and use the get URI method.
Yep, APIs, that's what they're for. All right, and there's one more question. Can it be configured to use a CDN?
Yeah, I mean, that's totally transparent for adaptive media. If you have configured CDN properly in Liferay.com, you are good to go. There's nothing extra that you need to do here. Like, The way this adaptive media works is pretty similar to the way documents and media serves images. But instead of using the web server servlet, that is the one used by adaptive media, we are using this adaptive media servlet. And this is all, I mean, the CDN is something that is working before this. So the CDN will be applied for this transparently. There's nothing that it will prevent you from using CDN with adaptive media.
Oh, sounds good. One more question just popped up, and to everyone out there who is watching this live, we are very close to the end of the session. So if you have any more questions, please post them right now on either YouTube or our Slack channel. So the question that just showed up is from Karunal Patel. I hope I read the name right. I'm terrible with reading people's name, and apologies if I misread it. And it says, is it possible to reduce size of an image which is part of Liferay team?
Which is part of Liferay team. I didn't understand that.
Well, so I guess if you use images in your team, or like part of the web, the team that you create for your website.
Oh, I see. You mean teams in Liferay, like the concept in Liferay? Okay, and where are those images stored? Like if right now we are like, let me show. Like this is the part that I explained at the beginning. Right now there are two different repositories that we are hooking adaptive media in. The first one is adaptive media Liferay, and this is the one that is used by documents and media. So that means that all documents and medias, no matter which site they are, no matter if it's a personal site, if it's a organization, if it's like a site, adaptive media will be working on those repositories. And the other one, it's, let me show you repository, adaptive media repository. And the other one is the Portlet repository definer. This is the Portlet repository that we are using for storing attachments, for example, in message boards, wiki, knowledge base. And there might be third-party developers who are also using this Portlet repository for including their files or images. So adaptive media is also included in this repository. So as long as the user, no matter if it's a team or if it's an organization or a site, is storing images in documents and media or in any of these repositories, they will get the advantages of adaptive media by default. And in case that it doesn't, and you have some custom logic or some custom repositories that you created, you can, of course, always create your own component and hook here the repository that you are using, and you're good to go. That's everything you need to do.
All right, that sounds very nice. All right, I'm looking at the YouTube chat, no more questions there, and looking at Slack, and no more questions there. So I guess that is it for today.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Sergio.
If you let me, I'd like to.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that for all the people who are interested in learning more and knowing more about adaptive media, we have some nice tutorials, both oriented for users, like the one I'm displaying here with different sections. It's a little bit more detail of what I explained here, but from a user point of view. And also we have some nice documentation for developers that I think they are good to know in case you're planning to use adaptive media in your own apps. So just make sure that you check dev.life.com for these tutorials.
All right. Thank you, Sergio. It was a great session. I learned a lot myself and hope the people who join us live also learned a lot. And it certainly is going to help a lot of people who's going to watch this recording later on. So thank you again. Thank you, everyone who joined us live. What I'm going to say finally to you is join our Slack channel. In our Slack channel, in our Slack community Slack, we have channels for all the products of that Liferay provides. We also have channels for initiatives. Like we do have like AI channel, for example, for people who are interested in doing AI stuff with Liferay and so forth. If you have any ideas about anything that you're doing or interested in doing with Liferay, join us, tell us about it. Join us on Meetup, see which is the nearest Liferay user group for you. They are also organizing these types of presentations in your local area, likely. If there is none, tell us about it. We'll work with you to create one if you're interested. Anyway, Liferay is what it is because of its community, and we want you to be part of it. And any way you find to contribute, whether that's asking questions, fixing bugs, or contributing code, or writing documentation, it's fine with us. We're here to help you. And with that, I'm closing today's DevLife #1 session of 2018 season. Hope to see you soon with the next one, which I don't know when it's going to be, but stay tuned. Thank you. Bye.